And then we think of nature as well. Sometimes we forget about ourselves. We forget to include ourselves in it as well. But yes, the law of love includes all creations. And the same way we learn to take care of the universe, let's talk now about how we can work on peace for our planet, starting with our own hearts. How can we develop and promote it? Well, Spiritism talks about inner transformation and gives us important tools.
To guide us in this discovery, let's present Edward Christie, who will be talking about visualizing peacemaking skills. Edward Christie has been involved with Spiritism for more than 20 years and is a member of the Spiritist group of New York. He's a classically trained pianist and has taught music as well as computer science courses in New York schools. Edward enjoys learning and uses his love of teaching to share what he has learned with others. Let's welcome Edward Christie.
I bet that anyone who's been asked to speak right after lunch feels like they lost a speaker lottery. Somehow when the belly is full, the brain goes empty. And so after 5 thoughtful lectures, our brain is full and our stomachs are empty. But there's hope. Yeah, I see food in your future. I took my first computer programming course 37 years ago, and I still remember something the teacher said. 3 things can go wrong with a computer program. It can produce unexpected results, it could do nothing, or it could blow up. As a novice programmer, I had to take this on faith. After years of correcting programming errors, I found my teacher's rule to be true. Because computers and the programs that run on them are human inventions, they inherit human strengths and weaknesses. To understand how something like a computer program can go wrong, it's useful to look at what it means to be human. Givaldo Franco, in his book, I Love Myself, I Am Addiction-Free, says that we've inherited a body that is the result of millions of years of evolution, and an intelligence that's new, only some 10,000 years old. He tells us that research suggests that 80% of the world's population live from the mouth down, living to put food in their stomachs, clothes on their backs, and a roof over their heads. Statistically, if there are 10 people in your row, 8 are living from the mouth down. Don't worry, you're not one of them. We know how to care for the body. We can use our instinct to care for our physical health. We eat when we're hungry, we sleep when we're drowsy, and we look for warmth when we get cold. We can't, however, draw upon instinctive knowledge to care for our psychological health because human nature doesn't have these instincts. So how can we care for our psychological health? How do we feed our intelligence, protect our sense of right action, and clothe our understanding of what humans are for? A cartoon I saw struck me as how we normally answer this question. In the cartoon, a manager says to a group of programmers, "You guys start writing the program, and I'll go find out what it's supposed to do." Jesus tells us clearly what humans are for, what we're supposed to do, and what the purpose of our life is. Jesus doesn't ask us to be powerful or successful or great or a winner or even to be enlightened. He never said, "Thou shalt be right." Jesus doesn't ask or expect sinless perfection, but only for a change of heart and to go and sin no more. Jesus tells us that what we are here for is heart work. Relationship is everywhere in Jesus' teachings. Jesus told us to love God and one another, to forgive each other, to reconcile with our brothers, to love our enemies, to lay our hands on the sick, and to be a peacemaker. Jesus loved those that seemed unlovable, forgave those that seemed unforgivable, and healed those that seemed incurable, and asks us to do the same. He taught us to pray by saying, "Our Father," not "my Father." Not "give me this day my daily bread," but "give us this day our daily bread." He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." We're brothers and sisters of the human family, called to make peace with one another, regardless of the differences that separate us. Strength seems inherently aggressive, and it takes new thinking, Christ consciousness, to see strength in peace. We build relations not through power, but through community. Every encounter we have with someone else changes us. From the moment we're born, we're tuned into other people's emotions and actions, and when we respond, our inner world and outer expression change. A newborn can hardly see, and yet within an hour of its being born, a baby can imitate the expressions of those around it. We are interconnected at the deepest levels. That we each decided to be here today is the result of countless encounters across many incarnations. Everything we do, say, and experience exists in a web of relationships. When we interact with others, we come to know ourselves. We experience our impatience and tolerance and our irritation, our compassion, our concern, and our caring. Without others, these emotions might be hidden in some dark corner of our awareness that makes us blind to who we are. It is in the messiness of everyday living that we come to know ourselves. A Zen story tells of two brothers who vow to devote their life to attaining peace of mind. One brother went to the top of a mountain to learn how to still his mind until he could hold a ball of snow in his hand without it melting. The other brother stayed at the bottom of the mountain, helping the village and its people. Years passed, and Mountain Brother came down, holding a ball of snow to show Village Brother that he had learned to still his mind. When he found him, Village Brother was treating the wound of a young woman, and her clothes were pulled up to reveal her leg. Immediately, the ball of snow melted in Mountain Brother's hand. It took only a moment with another for Mountain Brother to lose his peace. Defining peacemaking is as tough as defining love or forgiveness. So I'm going to look at peacemaking the way a professional approaches his work. A lawyer can help you if you have trouble with the law, but can't make you a good citizen. A teacher can help you if you lack knowledge, but can't develop your intelligence. A doctor can help you if you have disease, but can't create good health. These professionals recognize that the remedy for trouble with the law or bodily disease or lacking knowledge is essentially external, while intelligence, good citizenship, and health must be developed internally by each one of us. We don't lack external truth. We have plenty of teachings. What we need to do is to question these teachings for ourselves, to find out how they are true for each one of us. No one can do this work for you. If you let that happen, you'll be living someone else's life. So I might be able to help you with how peacemaking can go wrong, but to be a peacemaker is an inside job. Peacemaking can go wrong in ways similar to my teacher's rule on computer programs. Peacemaking can blow up, do nothing, or produce unexpected results. Let's look at each one of these in turn. My teacher told me that computer programs can go wrong by blowing up. A program that blows up has reached the limitation either of the computer itself or the skill of the programmer. Instead of handling that limitation, the program figuratively throws up its hands and says, I can't do this. In daily life, blowing up is a sign that we have reached the limit of our ability to make peace, and anger is taken over. When anger speaks, it says, I don't want what I'm getting, or I'm not getting what I want. Anger thinks that something or someone is wrong or bad or an enemy. Anger wants something or someone to change and overestimates our ability to control events and people. Our free will allows us to choose our actions. Our free will does not give us the ability to control the outcome of our choices. Mahatma Gandhi says, man is the maker of his own destiny in the sense that he has freedom of choice as to the manner in which he uses his freedom, but he is no controller of results. Once he thinks he is, he comes to grief. When we forget this, when we believe that we can control the outcome of our choices, anger will burst out when things don't go our way. Anger's closest ally is impatience, because anger wants things to change, and impatience can't wait for things to change. Impatience lives in a world of instantaneous solutions, and everything has to happen right now. Someone must change immediately, and the situation must be corrected this instant. The bond between anger and impatience is the desire for change, a desire based in emotion. We've all had a visit from anger and impatience, many visits, multiple times a day. Our job is to be good hosts and hostesses and introduce these two emotions to the virtue of patience. Unlike emotions, which the will does not control, patience is a choice, a conscious choice to make friends with anger and impatience. Patience doesn't take away the emotions, but it steers them in a new direction. Patience is like windshield wipers in a storm. Pressing the patience button on the dashboard won't stop the rain, but it will help us to see more clearly. Patience is a choice, but once anger and impatience show their face, choosing patience is difficult. So patience requires us to train with little things, because if we make a big deal out of little things, what will we do when the big ones come? We're experts at using our intelligence to make ourselves irritated. We complain that the weather is too hot or too cold, or too many mosquitoes in summer, the trains take too long to come, the lines are so long in the supermarket, and there are so many bad drivers on the road. Complaining about irritations is the junk food that anger and impatience feed on. We get irritated because of the way we think. Shantideva, the 8th century Buddhist monk, puts it this way: if you walk barefoot, your feet will get cut by stones, wet from puddles, and burned by hot sand. You can think, the world is too sharp, too wet, and too hot. If I cover the entire world with leather, nothing will ever bother my feet again. Of course, this is a fantasy. Isn't it more reasonable to wrap some leather around my feet? Then I can walk anywhere and not be hurt. See, it's not the world that needs to change, but how we live in the world. We can't eliminate all pain and suffering, but we can pay attention to our thoughts, our likes and dislikes, whether we think something is for us or against us, or whether we agree or disagree with the way things are, so that when irritation comes, we can meet it with patience that we've practiced before anger and impatience pay us a visit. It's not only our thoughts, but the words we speak that matter, because peacemaking depends on our words. The words we say matter because they reflect what's in our heart. In Matthew's gospel, we hear, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. And whatever comes out of the mouth comes from the heart. And that's what makes a person unclean. In the book of James, we read, Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Our Western culture idolizes self-expression. I have a right to say what I think and feel, but what would happen if you didn't say what you think and feel? How many times that you wished you had spoken up but didn't? Then think of how many times and restless nights you've spent regretting something you did say. Peacemaking requires us to close our mouths when we want to change someone and speak when our words create community. My teacher told me computer programs can go wrong when they do nothing. The program works, but nothing happens. Saying nothing happens is too hasty a conclusion because computer programs rarely do nothing. A computer program can have thousands of individual instructions, and all of them can work just as I intended, and yet not produce any result I can see. Peacemaking can be like this. Peacemaking can seem to do nothing to end differences and bring about peace. We're skeptical of peacemaking because we think it won't produce anything significant. We fear that peacemaking will label us as unrealistic and will be seen as weak and laughed at. And we can lose hope, saying, I've been working so hard to make peace, and nothing I do works. St. Paul clears our vision. He says of this skepticism, where does this leave the philosophers, the scholars, and the world's brilliant debaters? God has made the wisdom of this world look foolish. And again, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. And one more time, God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise, and God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the things which are strong. See, peacemaking looks foolish to the wise because they follow the wisdom of the world that values winning and results. The wisdom of God does not concern itself with results, but rather on right action and right work. The writer and mystic Thomas Merton says, do not depend on the hope of results. You may have to face the fact that your work may be apparently worthless and achieve no result at all. Concentrate not on results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. What is right work? Let's use health as an example. Say I go to my doctor and I say, Doc, I want to be healthy. What should I do? He'd say, eat healthful foods, exercise, rest, have a hobby, stay connected with family and friends. Hey, so if I do all those things, I'm going to be healthy? And the doc will say, no, I can't guarantee you're going to be healthy, but you'll be doing the right things for your health. When we decide to be spiritually healthy, we focus on right action. We love, even if it's conditional. Forgive, even when I still feel hurt. Reconcile, even if only partially. Make peace, even if it seems to do nothing. If we concentrate on results which we do not control, we'll only be disappointed and give up when things don't happen on our timetable. And results can be deceiving. Something that looks good may turn out to be harmful, just as something that is painful may turn out to hold benefits. It's hard to get work right because work often means doing something that someone else tells us is valuable. We might be able to do this to earn a living, but not with spiritual work. Spiritual work values the work itself, or otherwise work becomes a means to an end, to get something good or avoid something bad, and we're right back to working for results again. We can work hard to conform to the rules, lead a sinless life, and be regular in every way, and still live a life that's without peace. We can know the law inside and out, and our hearts can be cold and hard. In the Spirit's book, the divine or natural law of work tells us that there is a limit to work, that the limit is the limit of our strength, and we must decide on this point individually. When we strain at work, We push ourselves beyond the limit of our strength. We might be able to do this for a short time, but we take a mistaken view of human nature if we think that we can strain at work indefinitely. If we work this way, our effort will defeat us, as anyone who's ever been on a diet can tell you. Hard work must be rooted not in force and strain, but in love. If we're miserable, or our work makes others miserable, it very likely means we're frustrated because we're not getting the results from our work that we expect. The limit of work is found in our limit to be able to work with a peaceful heart. We trust in the value, the rightness, the truth of the work, and our work creates not strain and misery, but peace and reconciliation. Martin Luther King Jr. dedicated his life's work to exposing racism through nonviolent protest. He said, "Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land." King spoke these words on April 3rd, 1968. On the next day, he was shot and killed. In his life, Martin Luther King was often defeated and weary, and at his death, there was still more work to be done, but he kept his focus on right work, creating peace, and listening to the will of God. His work seemed insurmountable, and he died a martyr's death, but he trusted in the value, the truthness, and the rightness of his work because it was grounded in his love for his fellow man. My teacher told me that computer programs can go wrong when they don't produce the expected results. The program works, but the results are confusing. I found that this kind of error is common when I've oversimplified the problem. I didn't allow for the complexity of the information that I had to work with. St. Augustine helps us understand the danger of simplistic, black and white, all or nothing thinking. As a young man, Augustine anxiously sought the answer to the question, where does evil come from? The problem is this: if God is good, He would want His creatures to be happy. And if God is all-powerful, He could do as He wished. But creatures are not happy. So God lacks either goodness or power or both. Augustine was a very passionate young man, and he felt he had to get this right in order to live a meaningful life. He found his first answer in the solution offered by Manichaeism. This religious movement taught that there were two gods, a good God that created a spiritual world of light, and an evil God that created a material world of darkness. That is, there was a good power that created spiritual things like the soul, and an equally strong evil power that created the material world and everything that's wrong with it. After being a Manichae for 10 years, Augustine became unhappy with this simplistic answer to the origin of evil. He began to take the Bible seriously and read that there was one God who created everything, and that everything He created He called good. Moral evil was not the result of an evil God, but rather is the result of human free will. God doesn't prevent evil that comes from our choices because free will is a good that He's given to humans. Augustine says that God could prevent us from doing evil by taking away our free will, but He prefers to show His love by bringing good out of evil, rather than there to be no evil. Think of the idea of one God versus two gods this way. If I buy a shirt and find when I get it home that there's a hole in it, I can't remove the hole and bring it back to the store. My new shirt isn't made from one good and one bad substance, a shirt and a hole. The whole exists because the shirt exists. And without a shirt, there's no whole. I might get rid of the shirt if it doesn't do what a shirt should do, protect and beautify the body. Of course, these days, holes in clothes are very common, so I might keep it anyway. But we go wrong when we think of defects in people the same way we think of defects in a shirt. Jesus tells us that people are made to love and be loved, which we show through forgiveness, reconciliation, and peacemaking. People are not made to be free from damage and defects, but to use their freedom to make peace, to forgive, and to love. Augustine says that moral evil doesn't have its own existence, but is rather a lack of the good. While this seems obvious, we often see the world as a Manichaean does, dividing the world into good and bad, right and wrong, light and dark. We think the Manichaean belief in one good and one evil God is misguided, but we do this when we think of people as good or evil, as if they came from different sources. Objective good and evil do exist, but we go wrong when we use our prejudices, biases, and incomplete understanding as a measure of good and evil. We see the good in others subjectively when we ask, what does this person mean to me? Do I approve of them? Can they treat me right? Do they help me? And we can see the good in others objectively. People have intelligence, reason, free will, imagination, creativity, and the capacity to love. We're trained to see wrongdoings, but the wrongs that we see are not in the person. The wrong is in the action or the use of the will. A person can do something evil or criminal, but no matter what evil a person does, he cannot make his human nature evil because he is created as good by a good God. As we open our vision, we see that human free will is a good independent of how it is used. Seeing the good in others objectively and loving the good in others changes us both. Loving the good in others changes them because now they know they're lovable and that their faults are overshadowed by the good that's in them. Loving the good in others changes us because once we see others as lovable, we have to learn to love them right. And when we love them right, we have become peacemakers. It can be that simple. My teacher's 3 ways computer programs can go wrong helped me to mature as a programmer and also open my vision to peacemaking. As insightful as my teacher's rule is, I know I won't remember it when I'm stressed or upset. What I can do is develop a peaceful mind before trouble strikes. Our prayer to help us put into practice what we've learned is made real when we practice. So here are 3 practices or skills we can use to visualize peace. I gave them names. I call them making room for the 10%, offering silent intentions, and the breath of patience. Skill number 1. When peacemaking gets unexpected results, it means that we have lost the true value of relationship. That is, to love the good in another. Our prejudices, biases, and incomplete understanding stop us from seeing the good in others. None of us has the whole truth. Each of us sees only part of the truth. Making peace means holding more than one truth in my mind and asking, what truth does this person have that I don't? The Franciscan speaker and writer Richard Rohr gives us a way to ask this question. This skill, making room for the 10%, is aimed at our intention to make peace in relationship. Richard Rohr suggests this. When I disagree with someone, I admit that that person is at least 10% correct. Admitting that the person has at least 10% of the truth makes room for the other person's truth in my thinking. Making room for the 10%, we love the good in others because this allows us to see that we're all searching for the truth. Skill number 2. When peacemaking seems to do nothing, we have lost faith in the value of right work. Valuing right work tests our belief in reincarnation and immortal life, that what we do has a cumulative meaning apart from the seeming insignificance of everyday life. This skill, offering silent intentions, is aimed at our intention or our desire to make peace with others. They're called silent because you don't say these intentions out loud. You say them only to yourself. To someone you love, think, may you be happy. To someone you pass on the street, think, may you have peace. To someone at work, think, may you be healthy. To someone who challenges you, think, may you be loved. To a politician, think, may you be free from suffering. Offering silent intentions blocks our habit to judge people, teaches us to want the good for others, and creates a mind ready for peace. Skill number 3. When instead of peacemaking we blow up, we give into a force that strengthens the ego and blinds us to our deeper nature. Blowing up exhausts our breath. Choosing patience gives us time to breathe and wait for a peaceful response. This skill, the breath of patience, is aimed at our intention to make peace with our deeper self. Put a hand on your heart and breathe in before saying each of these statements. I am immortal. I am changing. I am forgiven. I am loved. The breath of patience awakens us to our deeper nature and is our halfway house to peace. Making room for the 10%, offering silent intentions, and the breath of patience are just 3 skills we can use to visualize peacemaking. I invite you to try them for yourself. They may open the door of peace for you. I want to leave you with a quote from spiritual writer and theologian Henry Nouwen. Nouwen suffered from clinical depression and wrote openly about his loneliness and personal struggles. He wrote, "Only one thing seems clear to me. Every day should be well lived. Did I offer peace today? Did I bring a smile to someone's face? Did I offer words of healing? Did I let go of my anger and resentment? Did I forgive? Did I love?" These are the real questions. I must trust that the little bit of love that I sow now will bear many fruits here in this life and the life to come. Henry Nouwen's words live in a world that Jesus asked us to visualize. A world of reconciliation, healing, and peacemaking. A world big enough for all of us.